All right, time now for the exchange. The President of Israel, Isaac Herzog, joins us live now from Jerusalem. Mr. President, thank you so much for being with us. Israel has said time and time again that it does not want a wider war. But if you play out the events of last week, two back-to-back major attacks on Hezbollah's communication unit, so much so that thousands of fighters were seriously injured. Obviously, a lot of people, including children, killed. And then you had that targeted strike that killed a Hezbollah commander as well at the end of last week. If you look at that and you sort of play out that game of chess, there is really no way that Hezbollah is not going to retaliate, not going to respond. How can Israel say that it does not want a wider war, given the pace of the attacks that we saw last week, Mr. President?
Thank you, Bianna. We are insistent on the fact that we do not want war. And I repeat, we did not want this war. This war was waged against us through a terror attack of the worst kind on October 7th, and the day later, Hezbollah started attacking us day in, day out, endlessly. For the last almost 1 year, 352 days of attacks by Hezbollah. And we are, at the end, there's a limit to how much a nation can absorb when 100,000 of its citizens are totally deprived of their homes. Their homes are being destroyed. The whole region has been desolate. This is impossible. We have the full right to defend ourselves. So I remind everybody, we've gone through hell in the last year. We are fed up. We want to change the equation, and we want to see a new horizon, which, by the way, the Palestinians and the Arabs deserve as well. But they've been hijacked by a terrible empire of evil, Iran and its proxies, who are armed up to their neck with armaments of huge countries to fight us.
Mr. President, it's Bianna Golodryga. That was Zain, my colleague, who asked you that first question. It's the two of us. I know you can't see us. I want to ask you about what we heard from President Biden today, speaking before the UN General Assembly, where he noted that the world has the responsibility to ensure that an October 7th style attack never happens on Israel again. And he noted that on October 8th, Hezbollah began this conflict by launching those missile strikes on Israel. But then he went on to say that a full-scale war is in no one's interest and that he believes a diplomatic resolution is the only path to ending the Mideast conflict. So your goals are aligned, especially the return of tens of thousands of Israelis to the north. But my question to you is, are you and the United States on diverging pathways as to how to ensure that goal? The president's still saying that diplomacy is possible. It appears Israel saying that's not the case now.
I don't think so. I actually think that we are almost on the same page with the president. Perhaps some nuances, but we are indeed. We see eye to eye with the president. We've been trying endlessly to get to an arrangement in our northern border. The president has put special efforts. He sent a very talented envoy and diplomat, Amos Hochstein, time and again. But turns out Hezbollah doesn't want to stop. And they say, Nasrallah, their leader, says, I'm linking it to Gaza. And in Gaza, we have 101 hostages there in the dungeons going through hell. You just showed it in your program. And the leader of Hamas out there, Yahya Sinwar, does not want to move, doesn't want to move an iota. That's the truth. That's the crux of the matter. It's been said time and again by American leaders, from Secretary of State Blinken downwards. So this is the equation. So if Nasrallah wants to fight for Sinwar, and Sinwar says no, we can't go on this way. We have the full right, as every decent nation, to defend ourselves. That's the point. So we are fighting. We are trying to clean, as we say, to take off capabilities of Hamas. We are attacking their capabilities of huge missiles and specific missile and launchers who are aimed at our families, at our homes, at our cities, at our villages, in order to enable us at the end to get to calm in the north, bring our people back, and work as much as we can to get a hostage deal. This should be the most important priority of all the world leaders who are meeting right now at the UN General Assembly.
Mr. President, you talk about the importance of getting a hostage deal, and you mentioned the 101 Israeli hostages still trapped in Gaza, in your words, trapped in dungeons in Gaza. And I'm sure you heard our interview with Maya Regov just before you, detailing the horrors of what she experienced when she was trapped in Gaza for 50 days. Are you concerned, though, that escalating this war in Lebanon between the IDF and Hezbollah will make trying to get the hostages out of Gaza that much more complicated? That trying to get the hostages out, getting some kind of hostage deal is going to be that much more difficult if Israel does engage in a full-scale war with Hezbollah?
So I will explain the mentality of our enemies. It's a jihadist culture which has been worked out and choreographed in Tehran, with proxies all over the place, full of armaments, simply wanting to kind of weaken us endlessly and constantly by hemorrhaging and by pain and by attacks. We have to change the equation. And I have an advice to world leaders in this sense. I believe that this crisis that we are in, as we want to prevent war, we can escalate. It may, God forbid, escalate into a much bigger war. But if we want to prevent war, we have to work real hard on getting out of this crisis in a new arrangement that enables the release of the hostages, that enables the day after in Gaza, that enables a calm and defensible border with Lebanon, meaning adhering to international resolutions that Hezbollah never adhere to, and enable peace and calm and tranquility to go back. You know how many Muslim citizens were attacked today by Hezbollah? You know that Muslim Israelis, Arab Israelis were attacked by Hezbollah missiles. You know that Christian Israelis and Druze Israelis and Jewish Israelis, the beautiful tapestry of our Galilee is being attacked, and we won't accept it.
You mentioned resolution that have been signed. That was Resolution 1701, and that would call for Hezbollah fighters to remain north of the Litani River, where they certainly are not now. You also referenced Tehran, Mr. President, and I want to ask you to respond to two things that we heard recently from the new president, Pezeshkian. Our Fareed Zakaria asked him about what many had anticipated to be an imminent response from Iran following the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh earlier this summer. This is what he said to Fareed. Let's play the sound.
If international organizations cannot make this individual sit down and stand down, and they keep allowing someone who unfortunately has the means to commit such atrocities, then naturally we will give the appropriate response.
So that's one thing that he said, but while here in New York before the UN General Assembly to reporters, he also suggested that that Iran does not want war with Israel. How do you interpret these comments? Is Israel anticipating any type of response militarily from Iran in the coming days and weeks?
Well, it's very clear. The onus is on him, and mostly the onus is on his regime, because the one who calls the shots in Iran is the supreme leader, and because the Revolutionary Guards don't ask the president a word and they don't adhere to his authority, and they spread terror cells all over the world, and they finance and beef up and supply armaments to all these terrible terrorist organizations who are shattering the Middle East, in Lebanon, in Gaza, in Iraq, in Yemen. So he can't play double standard. If he wants to be serious about it, if he wants to change the course in the region, he's got to get these guys, these proxies, these terror organizations out of the way and enable a real dialogue with the state of Lebanon, a real day after in Gaza that will enable Palestinians to live in dignity as we want them to, and enable real calm and tranquility, rather than calling Israel this week. His supreme leader, just a few days ago, called Israel a tumor that must be removed.
Quickly, Mr. President, there had been conflicting reports about the whereabouts, the state, the health of Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas in Gaza. The United States, Israel saying the onus as of now is on him in terms of a ceasefire and hostage deal. What intelligence, if any, can you share with us about his whereabouts and his health?
Look, we are all trying to locate and hunt him down. We can't confirm either or. It's all under deep surveillance. But right now, he's the leader of Hamas. He has to say yes. There's an American proposal and a mediator's proposal. It's all very clear that we can get to a hostage deal. But I must say, and I say it out loud and clearly, throughout the last year, he has been saying no. He has been literally saying no. And our hostages are in huge, huge pain and suffering. And I mean, it's mind-boggling. And I can't think on more pain than what they're going through in the dungeons and tunnels of Gaza.
Yeah, and there are those who also criticize Benjamin Netanyahu for moving the goalposts when it comes to the Philadelphia corridor as well. So the international community look at the hostage deal and feel that though both sides do bear some responsibility in the fact that there has been no deal as of yet. Israeli President Isaac Herzog.
So I will reply to that.
Go ahead.
I would just say on the merits. I know that there are, of course, claims on the Israeli position, but the underlying position of Sinwar and Hamas has been adamantly no to all the proposals. And there are positions that were taken by the Israeli government which have to do with Israel's security and have been discussed in public and also in closed rooms. As far as I know, Israel is trying its best to get to a deal.
Yeah, as you know, though, many in your own government, the defense establishment, had voiced their frustration over the past few weeks as to the state of where Prime Minister Netanyahu is in terms of these hostage and ceasefire talks. But Jake Sullivan, as of today, said that it is, in his view and the U.S. view, that it is Sinwar who is currently preventing a deal. Israeli President Isaac Herzog, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
With more after the show.